Hangtown. I need a room for both of us at, what is that, the Hampton Inn? Have we staying in every year? Hampton Inn?
For just Friday night?
I think for just Friday night, Saturday after the race.
All right, so I'm going to get Diana for the dogs.
Get Diana for the dogs. And Kevin, what's his name?
Tim Buck.
Tim Buck's having a party Friday night. I'll be making an announcement about that eventually, not right now. Well, it won't be an announcement, but there'll be an invitation later.
And JoJo wanted us to have dinner with him too.
I know. I can't be in two places at once. But maybe the dinner with JoJo goes earlier and we go to Tim's thing. I don't know. Right now, I don't know. Okay. You have to give away grips tonight, and that's it. And I have to start the show.
Nice shirt, Joe.
You like it?
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have Paul Parkinson on too. I told you that a little bit earlier, right?
You did.
Okay. All right, here we go. Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I am your host, Joe Abbate. Thank you for joining me tonight. Along with me is my lovely hostess, Susie.
Hi.
Susie, what are we giving away tonight for? What do you call it now? It's not the random share giveaway. What is it?
No, it's viewer appreciation.
Viewer appreciation.
And we're giving away these lovely grips.
Compliments of
Preston Petty, aka Paul Parkinson.
Paul Stannard.
Paul Stannard. I get those two balls always mixed up.
Okay. Well, that's what we're going to be giving away tonight, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll be giving those away a little bit later on in the show. And as I mentioned, we are going to have Paul Parkinson Sr. here talking about replica motorcycle parts. Question came up today on our Facebook group, and I called him up, and he said, yeah, I'll be glad to come down and tell you all about it. In the meantime, I want to thank our sponsors, Motion Pro, Vinco, The Moto Barn, Preston Petty Products, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, RacerX, the International Motocross Museum, Full Circle Racing, and our good friend Mike Chamberlain. Also, we've got Durf Cycle Shop. Durf's has been doing really, really well lately, and they've decided to come on board with us as a show supporter. So we thank Fred Hudgens about that. And we also got involved with Jerry Maddox. I don't know if you guys know Jerry Maddox from Facebook, but he is tearing up the Arma countryside on his little CR125 that he affectionately calls Clunker. And he's got some other people helping him out, including Amsoil, Remix, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Butch Sandgrath's been helping him out a bit. And as you can see down there in the lower left-hand corner, Vintage Motocross Q&A is now kind of working with Jerry Maddox back and forth. He will take our name on the road, and we're going to be showing him some support here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. In the meantime, it is time for our Next Time Try This segment. This week, I want to talk to you a little bit about gaskets. And, well, let's get right to the video, and we'll see what's happening there. I want to talk to you about gaskets. And my hint is, forget the glue, buy the gaskets. What am I talking about? Gaskets are very, very important to the assembly of your engine. Not only are they there to keep the oil in and in some cases dirt out, the center case gasket, like I'm showing you right here, is often used as a shim. When those two case halves go together on that bike, the thickness of that gasket is important. A lot of times guys will take some of your gasket cements, they'll put it in there, it'll either be too wide, which could be a problem, or worse than that, they just put a thin bead around there, and when they push those two halves of those cases together, there really isn't enough room that the manufacturer has required to get everything to spin smoothly, whether it's shaft or whether it's shifting. So, especially on the center cases, forget the glue, go with the gasket. Where are some other places that you may have a problem? I see a lot of times where I'm taking bikes apart for restorations, or in some cases I buy them to sell them. I'll take them apart to clean them. Where will I find gasket cement? Around the intake. not really a good place to put it. This is someplace you really want to use a gasket. Why? Some people, who are amateurs especially, think that more gasket cement is better. It really isn't. It can sometimes get into the edge of where the intake is. Sometimes it can break loose in there from heat, from the gas going through. A little bit can break through there. It gets sucked into the intake. It could cause rings to stick, and it could cause a variety of damage in your engine. So there's another place where you want to make sure that you use a gasket and not glue. If you want to use OEM gaskets, those are usually the best. Reproduction gaskets, of course, I'm going to tell you to use Vinco. They really make a quality product, and what I like most about Vinco gaskets is how in their areas where there is a dowel that sits in the side of your case, a dowel, so you can hang that gasket in there and it won't move when you're assembling the engine. All of their cuts are absolutely perfect. I've seen some on aftermarket gaskets that are not so good. So, buy a quality gasket. Get the gasket, avoid the glue. And get your gaskets from Vinco or a high-quality reproduction company if you want good gaskets for your bike. And it's very important that you do.
I'm Don Kadowski, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Don't go anywhere.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and keep that ride going.
Yeah, Vinco's got a couple of great specials going on, as they usually do. They got rod kits for like 30 different Suzukis, all 125s and 100s. Go over to Vinco.com and you'll find out which one they have for your bike. There's like 30 different ones, though. Also, they've got some DT and IT rod top-end kits. Top-end kits for the DT and the IT, and a lot more, too. That's all at Vinco.com. In the Moto Showcase this week, which is brought to you by Preston Petty Products, we'll be giving away a set of grips. Don't forget to keep sharing the show. We've got a Honda CR125. But as I mentioned, Preston Petty, a big sponsor of the show for a very, very long time now. Get over there. They've got all the fenders that you have loved since the 70s. Front, rear, the integrated number plate for the front with the light in it. They've got all that great stuff at Preston Petty Products. This week's bike belongs to Jeff Pike. Jeff Pike. This is a 1974 Honda CR250. It's hard to believe this bike is now going on 51 years old. This bike was sent to me complete, but in rough condition, and Jeff didn't cut any corners, and neither did I, when it came to doing the restoration. The pipe on the bike was original. It didn't have a broken ignition cover. All the stuff was there that you would expect to find or to have on your 1974 CR250. Here's a bit of it going back together again. One of the most important things I find out to make a job really, really good, especially a restoration, is the hardware. It's about, 25% of the bike as a whole. It holds 100% of it together. And if you don't do it correctly, you got to take the whole bike apart to do it all again. So we make sure that we do all the polishing, inspect everything, and get it all polished up and clear zinced, back in shape before we do the restoration. Paintwork on this bike, of course, came from Brian Fettigan at Moto Restoration in, where is he, Susie? In New York?
Oh,
Brian Fettigan.
he's in Hamlet.
Hamilton. Hamlin.
Little town of Hamlet.
Hamlet, New York. That's it. Here's a good picture of the ignition cover. And what else do we have here? Yeah, we vapor blasted all of the hardware, not the hardware, but some of the aluminum parts. Of course, the hardware I talked about, we had rezinced. We had these sleeves that we had for the shocks. Those were made by a guy named Phil Fulmar at RPM. And on this piece right here, you might notice one thing, and I'll point it out to you. Some people notice it, some people won't. There's supposed to be a spring right here on this clutch cover, and I didn't have an OEM clutch cable, rather. But other than that, I think everything else on the bike came out absolutely spectacularly. And there you have it, 1974 Honda CR250 Elsinore. Did you know? Did you know is sent in to us this week by Jeff Kokoski. In fact, it's sent in just about every week from Jeff, and he comes up with some really, really great information. And Jeff wants to know, did you know about the Highland motorcycle? In the years after Husqvarna was purchased from Cagiva and moved production from Sweden to Italy, a handful of Swedish engineers were left behind. Some started working on for Husqvarna, while others worked for Folan. Folan was a Swedish engine manufacturer that had four-stroke development roots back in 1982. In the early 90s, Folan developed a 60-degree fuel-injected 8-valve 750cc V-twin. I've got a picture of that bad boy right here, too. There it is on the right-hand side. Anyway, Folan also developed a fuel-injected four-stroke single and original Cannondale prototypes. Unfortunately, Cannondale thought they could do better. They started to design and build their own motors, and we know what turned out for Cannondale. They went bankrupt, but that's another story. In 1998, Mats Malmberg, one of those Folan engineers and a motorcycle racer, bought the rights to Folan V-twin and started a motorcycle company in Sweden called Highland AB. Highland developed their own aluminum frames, and they even dabbled in stainless steel and targeted adventure bikes for a while. At the same time, they also worked with Folan to produce a 450cc four-stroke single that would compete with KTM, and it was working, except that Folan's was fuel-injected, and they put out an insane 56 horsepower. By 2006, Highland started producing their own bikes in Sweden using Folan motors, handmade frames, Marzocchi forks, Öhlins rear shock, and Brembo disc brakes. There were also talks with Chinese motorcycle manufacturers to help the Highland scale to produce bikes really more for the masses. Anyway, there was also another man that got involved. His name was Chase Bales, and he had purchased one of the Highland Adventure models, and he was very impressed. He and Malberg then crossed paths and were working on a project for ATK. Bales produced to move Malberg and the company to Tulsa to build an entire line of new motorcycles. Very, very interesting, Jeff. And we're going to go on here just a bit more. On February 23rd, 2010, U.S. Highland opened a new 33,000 square foot manufacturing facility town in Tulsa with anticipation of building 700 units in 2010 and more than doubling that in 2011. It seemed that the Highland star was starting to shine, but tragedy struck. On July 10th, 2010, Malmberg, Bales, and a CFO, Damian Ruddock, were traveling back from business trip from Pontiac, Michigan, when their twin-engine Cessna declared a fuel emergency, crashed in the woods near Tulsa International Airport, killing all three executives. After the crash, an interim COO was appointed. The 30 company employees maintained their job while management looked secure, but it really never gained traction again. And by 2013, everything had come to a screeching halt, unfortunately, for the Highland Company. And now you know all about Highland. We're going to take a break. We're going to hear from our sponsor, the International Motocross Museum. We'll be back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A. And don't forget, Paul Parkinson Sr. will be here in just a bit. We'll be talking about some of the new things that he's making over at ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. We'll be right back.
I'm Donnie Hansen. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
The International Motocross Museum is a not-for-profit 501c3 company, which means all of your donations and anything you buy from the International Motocross Museum is 100% tax deductible. We are looking to have an opening for the International Motocross Museum. You'll be hearing more about it in the next couple of months. I have to announce that Paul Parkinson is now in the studio. So you know what I think we're going to do? We're going to spend some time with Paul Parkinson, and then we'll get back to what's it worth and MX history and stuff like that. Okay. So without any further ado, Paul Parkinson, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Joe. How's it going?
It's going real well. Let me just try and see how I could do this here with, all right, here we go. Paul Parkinson, ladies and gentlemen, from replicamotorcycleparts.com. Been a sponsor of the show, I think, for a couple of years now, and is coming up with new products all the time. Paul, I had a question this morning from, it was from Mike Hudgens, actually. And Mike Hudgens is from Durf Cycle. Fred Hudgens, I'm sorry. Fred Hudgens from Durf Cycle. Anyway, he had a question, and I'm going to put it up here, and then I think we're going to let you address it. Here it is. Fred Hudgens. How does a 3D print machine print out mild steel? Want to talk to us about that?
I think Fred was following me around or something, because I actually have some parts that are just off of metal parts that are just, find the camera, just off the printer.
Okay.
So we'll go through that. But I mean, there's 5 types of technologies for making 3D printed parts. And what we, in the industrial arena, we call it additive manufacturing as opposed to 3D. But, you know, there's what's called the FDM, fused deposit method, which we use to make very soft rubber parts.
Okay.
There's SLA, which is a UV activated resin, which we don't use because it's not stable for production.
Okay.
There's what's called SLS, selective laser sintering, which we use to make plastic parts. So these are solid little plastic parts. We do the gas caps with those, clutch cable guides, things like that. Then there's HP's, well, there's what's called binder jet, which we don't use, but I can explain how it works. And then there's SLM, selective laser. And we use selective laser to do the metal parts. It's EOS M290. It's about $500,000.
Something like this?
Yeah, actually, it's something like this.
Something like what? Oh, okay. Well, you've got one there too. Is that the same thing I just had up on the screen?
That's the same thing. That's a CR125,
right?
Which has got a custom knuckle and a custom aluminum swing arm.
Okay.
I mean, kickstart lever. It's not a swing arm. But so we make these things, and then we're also starting to make gearbox parts.
Okay. Now, so, I can see it there on the screen. I'm sure people can see it at home, but I want to give them a little better view. There you go. There it is. These looks like lay shafts and a main shaft for CR250. Would I be correct, or 125?
That would be correct. And then what you see in that picture, this is how it comes off of the.
You want this picture up, or you want your picture up? You want that picture up, Paul?
But this, no, I'll use this for a second.
Okay, yeah, fine.
This is what it looks like coming off the printer, and then you show the picture you have, Joe. Put up your picture. Yeah, and that's after what we call post-processing. So we've machined these to get the surface finish and and just clean up the concentricity that we want in order to go into the gearbox. We
Okay.
drill the oil pilot holes and some other things into it. So it's not, 3D printing. There's always what we call a post-processing phase. Sometimes it's just removal of powder. Sometimes it's an additional machining operation. So
Now,
in the case of the gearbox, we machine a little bit.
For that shaft or for these gears right here, what are you? Is that steel? I mean, what is that, Paul?
So that's those particular parts are in 316 stainless. The production parts will be in a gear case hardenable steel. So there's a huge variety of alloys available for metal printing. We use an awful lot of 316 stainless and 316L, a little more carbon in it, primarily for cost and availability. Then we do a lot of work with an alloy that's very similar to 60601. But you can do titanium, you can do tool steel, you can do Inconel, you can do copper. It's all a function of dollars.
So in your industry, Paul, I'm sure that other people who have the same type of equipment that you have, they know what you're doing. But people like myself or viewers for the show, they won't. I don't certainly have an idea of what that machine looks like. Perhaps down the road, and I'm not rushing you off right now by any means, but perhaps down the road we can get a video of what that machine looks like and how you make those gears.
Well, actually, what I'll do, Joe, is so the gearbox project was we sponsored a design team at Trine University in Indiana.
Okay.
Great bunch of guys. I was just there on Friday for the graduation and final presentation of their project. But they took a video of the gearbox parts being laser printed. So you can actually see the laser going through and stuff like that. So I'll send that to you and you can post it.
Yeah, I would love to see that. And I mean, right now we've got some Honda gears and lay shafts, main shafts. Is there anything else that you see in the future that you're going to be coming up with as far as transmission parts?
Well, these ones are probably still 6-7 months away from being production released.
Okay.
It's very much, we are the first people that we know in the world. And we quizzed the people that make the printers that we use to have reverse engineered and made a gearbox. The material that they brought out to do gears had actually never been sold or shipped to North America.
Huh.
So we have to go back to Germany to print those production parts. So we can't even get it to put into our printer. So we're a ways away from, probably in 2025, we'll have production parts that are readily available. And then I've got a list of requested gearbox parts, Mako parts, Mako gearbox parts, a bunch of things. So we'll expand into that. And later this year, we're gonna start working on an experimental clutch basket. So we're gonna do a clutch basket to see how that stands up.
For Honda?
Yep. We have a lot of them in the back room. So.
Hey, I understand. One of your test riders is a mutual friend of ours, and we're kind of working together now. Is Jerry Maddox?
Yep. Jerry's been great. We send them every new part we get. We go send it to Jerry for stress testing.
And I want to get back to something else for a moment with you, Paul. Sure. We were talking about hard parts. I think a little while back where you and I crossed paths on the road somewhere, were you talking about possibly reproducing like a Mugen airbox?
Yeah, we're still about to do the Mugen airbox. We got a new piece of equipment coming in. So I had something. So we're doing, we'll start to do airboxes. In fact, the 78 CR250 airbox filter, the trihedral air cage is done. The nylon air filter holder is done. So the air box will be out soon. But we're also doing. So we did these for our good friend John Lake. So
okay.
80. This is the original '89 CR250, 1 year only front fork guard.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That's good. Yeah. Now we can see him.
now
Good.
you can see him. And John wanted his name there, but we said we'd have to put Honda.
Okay.
And so these are actually, when production, are being printed. The Honda lettering is red. So, I mean, we're starting to expand into larger format plastic parts and air boxes. And then we will, we're working on the Mugen front number plate, and then eventually we'll start to do some side covers.
All right. Well, I guess that we covered a lot of stuff here, Paul. Did we answer Fred's question?
No, well, but if Fred wants to get into it in depth, I'm more than happy to talk to him.
Okay.
But essentially, all of these work on a very tiny little layer. So you melt a very fine layer going around,
Right.
then you sweep the powder, which could be either nylon, aluminum, titanium, whatever. Sweep the powder across, and then you redo the laser again. And the layers are either 40 microns or 80 microns, so they're incredibly thin. But that lets the previous layer and the new layer melt together homogeneously.
Okay.
So people have asked me, how long does it take to print a part? Typically about 36 hours. If you're doing all the 80 microns or even 40 microns, and you do an inch, it
36 hours. 36 hours to do what part? Not a Kickstarter. Not one Kickstarter.
Yeah, and you have to qualify that, because the printer, I'll center myself here. The bed of the printer is a cube. It's a volume, and it's 10 inches, almost 11 inches by 15. So what we do is we pack all the parts in that space. So it takes 36 hours to go down every layer in that 11-inch stack.
Wow.
And then out of that stack, we pull out, 100 parts.
Well, Paul, you made this for me. People can see that. Look at that. So I know Clunker has one on it for Jerry Maddox, and you made this, and now I know you've got some gears, obviously lay shafts. You're talking about Mugen air boxes. I guess there really is there's no end in sight for replica motorcycle parts and Paul Parkinson. Although I understand you've got something distracting you a little bit. I understand you became a grandfather recently.
Well, I'm just about to. I came up to Canada to do the house renovations for my youngest.
Oh, okay.
But later this. Supposedly a Memorial Day baby.
Oh, very good.
So,
boy, girl, undecided? What do we got?
No, it's a boy.
A boy.
That refused to indicate the name, other than they refused to name him after me.
Okay. Well, Paul, I want to thank you for stopping by on such short notice, explaining to us exactly how the process works. And I would advise everyone get over to replicamotorcycleparts.com, see what they have to offer. And if you've got an idea, Paul, as always, you are always willing to listen to people if they need something too.
Yeah, we love to do crazy stuff.
Okay. Paul, thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Paul Parkinson, thank you, sir. Very, very interesting, don't you think, Susie?
Very.
I thought so as well. I need a little bit of a break. We're going to run a little commercial here. Then we're going to be back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Hi, I'm Tommy Croft, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A with Joe Abbate. We'll be right back with my dear friend Joe.
Hey, it's Joe Abbate for Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you're replacing a cylinder or a gasket or doing a top end on your bike, many times it's very, very difficult to get to the nuts that are on the base. And you want to be sure that you torque those evenly whenever you change a top end. Motion Pro has come up with this great tool. It's the torque adapter, okay? You can put any size wrench in there, and you can tighten it up. On the back is a 3/8 drive. You could put your torque wrench in there, get the wrench on the nut that's on the base of your cylinder, and make sure everything is torqued evenly. This is a great tool. I have one in the shop. We use it all the time. It comes with instructions as well. Go see your local dealer or get to motionpro.com. And don't forget, go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A to get a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. Susie,
Yes.
what do we got going on? Do you have, what do you call it again? The show appreciation?
Viewer appreciation.
Viewer appreciation prize.
Right.
Okay, who's this week's winner? Come on.
So this week is Roy Vanderveer.
Roy Vanderveer.
Yes.
Roy, get us your address and what has he won? I feel like I told. Tell her what she's won, Johnny.
Like Vanna. I'm like Vanna.
Yeah, tell her what she's won, Susie.
So these are grips from Preston Petty. And they are it's
Paul Stannard.
Paul Stannard, yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Roy Vanderveer, you are this week's winner. Get me your address. We'll get you some grips, compliments of Paul Stannard and Preston Petty products. Excellent job, Susie. We are going to move on to the What's It Worth segment of the show. And this week we have a 1982 Yamaha YZ490. I will tell you that this bike was sold April 19th. It was sold in Oregon. And it was sold on Bring a Trailer. Here's the bike. I'll tell you a little bit about it. You, the brilliant viewers at home, can guess how much you think this bike recently sold for. 1982 Yamaha YZ490 spent time in storage before it was acquired by the seller in 2003. It is finished in yellow with black and white graphics. The motorcycle is equipped with a 487cc two-stroke single paired with a 4-stroke transmission. Additional features include a contoured seat, a Mikuni carburetor, an upswept expansion chamber. It has a Kickstarter. Wow, how about that? Leading link axle, fork, and adjustable rear monoshock with monocross rising rate link. It has wire spoke wheels, 21 in the front and 18 in the rear. This bike is now being offered with a no reserve in Oregon for off-road use only, and it only has a bill of sale. This bike is actually pretty nice. I wouldn't consider it restored. Then again, nobody said it was restored. It is. It's been freshened up. The engine has been painted. It doesn't look like any of the hardware has been done, but it does look like a pretty tidy bike. It appears to me that the number plates are aftermarket. They look like some DC product, which is not bad for a race bike. The same with the fenders. Here's a shot of it here, and everything looks pretty tidy all in all. So, how much you think an 82 490 big bore Yamaha sold for? $2,500? You can't get a running bike like that for $2,500 anymore. $4,000? $38,000. This bike sold for $3,434. $3,434, and I think that was a pretty good deal. You think so, Suze?
I do.
I'm telling you, I was wondering if the head has been taken care of on this bike. They did have a bit of a pinging problem, or maybe that was the 465. Let me not speak out of line, talking about motorcycles that are actually too big for me to ride. Anyway, there you have it, 34.
Nobody guessed it.
Well, that's okay. Nobody guessed it. We're gonna
everybody was higher.
Everybody was higher?
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on. Have you ever heard of a Mustang? Not the car, the Mustang motorcycle. Well, here it is right here. Mustang was a lightweight motorcycle built by Gladden Products Corporation in Glendale, California. That all happened between 1946 and 1965. The second production version of the Mustang II model was among the first motorcycle manufacturers in the United States to have telescopic forks. Imagine that. In 1941, Forrest built the motorcycle powered by the engine, and it was commuted to work with the Gladden products on the motorcycle during World War II. The factory was located on the corner of South Brand Boulevard, and that is in South Brand Boulevard and Colorado Boulevard in beautiful Glendale, California. The mini bike was assisted by local engineer Council Tucker of Glendale, California. The Villiers engine and models. They also had some prototypes built during the war that used pre-war Villiers 191cc engines. And they also had double century engines, what they call double century engines. And kind of had a downsized frame, had 8-inch wheels, 200 millimeter wheels. And in 56, the Mustang was discontinued due to slow sales. And it went on to be called a Colt, which was a budget model, but not a whole lot happened with the Mustang models. And they did have one with a dual seat, and they're quite a bit of a collector's item now. The engine that they had that really ran the best seemed to be an uprated 12.5 horsepower engine. That was in your Stallion bike. It had a 4-speed transmission, but it never really quite caught on. And by 65, I think you had a lot of other people out there also who were making mini bikes at that time. Montgomery Ward and a lot of people were getting into the mini bike craze back at that time. But now you've heard of it and you know what a Mustang is all about. That segment of the show is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Tom McAllister, Full Circle Racing, been a sponsor of the show for about 4 years now. Tom's got a special going on for the CZ rear backing plate, just $179. If you don't want the CZ logo on it, just $169. Tom was up at the CZ race this past week, and still got some specials going on there, and a whole lot to offer at Full Circle Racing, including a lot of spokes, a lot of rims. Got a big order of rims that just came in. Just so much happening there at Full Circle Racing. We are going to move on to the MX History, This Week in MX History, brought to you by RacerX Magazine, available online and on your newsstand now. It was 1977. Marty Smith and Jim Pomeroy, both of Team Honda, went 1-2 at Southwick AMA 250 National. Defending two-time AMA national champion Tony DeStefano placed third with another Honda rider, Tommy Croft, in fourth. Love that picture of those five guys right there. All friends, some sadly gone. And Warren Reed, we talk quite often. 1988. We've got at David Bailey's Lake Sugar Tree in Axton, Virginia, we've got Jeff Ward. Jeff Ward played the role as a promoter. I'm sorry. Let me start that again. At David Bailey's Lake Sugar Tree, Axton, Virginia track, the champion played the role of promoter for the AMA 125 and 250 national race. Team Kawasaki's Jeff Ward topped the 250 class with a 1-1 score to the 3-2 of Yamaha's Brock Glover and a 4-4 of Ward's teammate, Ron Lachine. In a remarkable effort, Honda rider Guy Cooper showed up at Lake Sugar Tree, and his leg was in a fiberglass cast. Cooper had been out for 3 months with a broken leg, yet somehow he raced with a cast under his boot and finished 1-3 into 2 motos to take the overall win. His teammate George Holland finished second overall, while Suzuki factory rider Donnie Schmidt took a third. Imagine that, getting on a bike with a fiberglass cast, and I think he cut part of it off to get it in his boot, and he went 1-3 that day. What do we got coming up next? Oh no, this is a really good piece right here too. Kudrowski and Mike LaRocco. On the same day that Formula One champ Ayrton Senna had died, and it's today, May 1st. All these things happened on May 1st, by the way, this whole segment. It was May 1st. Ayrton Senna had died in a crash in the Italian GP, which cast a pall over the motorsports world in general. The second AMA 125-250 National of the season went off in Hangtown. Team Kawasaki's Mike Kudrowski and Mike LaRocco split moto wins, but it was the MX kid, Kudrowski, who got the overall. Further back, Team Honda's Jeff Stanton, 6-time AMA Supercross and 250 motocross champion, crashed and suffered a serious concussion. It was the beginning of the end for Stanton's most excellent career. In the 125 class, it was Suzuki-mounted Damon Huffman. He grabbed his first AMA national win, topping Honda's Steve Lampson and his own Suzuki teammate, Ezra Lusk. The finish line. Finish line is brought to you by the guy we just had here a moment ago, Paul Parkinson and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. As Paul was telling you, more and more parts are becoming available. He's got chain guides, air boxes. He's got air boots, Kickstarter knuckles, Kickstarters for your Honda 125s and 250s, and soon to be released transmission parts as well. Get over to ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com to learn more about what's happening there with Paul Parkinson Sr. Two of the hardest working people in vintage racing, a wonderful couple, husband and wife, Scott and Debbie Burnworth. Their second event is coming up. That is in Verona this Saturday, May 5th. Verona, May 5th, Scott and Debbie Burnworth. There's a class for everybody, and there's a lot of good sponsors for the Burnworth races too. They always give away a lot of great prizes. So if you're not doing anything on Saturday, get down to Verona. here at Vintage Motocross Q&A, we've got t-shirts and hoodies still available. They start at just $19.99. We've got t-shirts, hoodies. They come in black, white, and gray, and we can even have them in custom colors if you want them. The prices are posted on Facebook, but our t-shirts get started at just $20, and we've got some hoodies all the way up to 5X. That's right, hoodies up to 5X. Vintage Motocross Q&A. We sent a couple out this week. In fact, Cindy Good bought a couple from us. Cindy Good from the International Motocross Museum. Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are still available for you to get a hold of me, or if you just want to be a show supporter. You've heard me mention the show supporters at the beginning of the show. They've all been doing really, really well since they've been on the show here. And yeah, we've got Durfs, we've got Mark Chamberlain and High Desert Realty. George Ackerman says he sees a lot of action on his website since he's been here with us. And Al Roof, of course, a big supporter and just a great guy, all in all. That wraps it up for this edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I hope you enjoyed our time with Paul Parkinson Sr. Last week, I did have people email me, so many, about our last episode that had Steve Wise on it, as well as Warren Reed. And, we're going to do our best to have some people maybe hop in on the show a little bit toward the end or halfway through. We'll bring you more at Vintage Motocross Q&A. But for right now, this is Joe Abbate. I want to thank you for watching the show. Where's the dog? Can you get him?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if Gino wants to come in here. And then we'll run the end credits and away we go. Gino! Come on, boy. Oh, there he is. Thanks again for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next time.